The harsh February wind whipped against Nina's face as she stood in the apartment building's hallway, surrounded by her scattered belongings. Her mother-in-law, Helen, had slammed the door with such force that the glass in the windows rattled. "Mom, I'm cold," 12-year-old Lisa sobbed quietly, pressing herself against Nina. "Just a moment, sweetheart. We'll figure something out," Nina replied, but deep down, she knew something was terribly wrong. Her mother-in-law had thrown them out onto the street far too quickly. There was a vicious glint in her eyes as she screamed about strangers in her house. And why had she been so insistent on asking about Victor's documents? Nina's mind raced back to the final weeks of her husband's life. He had become anxious, often disappearing and receiving strange phone calls. The day before he died, he had told her, "Nina, if anything happens to me, go to the garage. Under the red box, you'll find something that will explain everything." At the time, she had dismissed it as the rambling of a sick man. But now, after arranging for Lisa to spend the night with her friend Sarah, Nina headed for the garage co-op. The February cold chilled her to the bone, but she pushed forward, clenching her teeth. She still had the key to Victor's garage. Flipping on the light, Nina looked around. It was an ordinary auto mechanic's garage, tools, spare parts, a workbench. The red box was in the corner. Nina slid it aside and discovered a neatly cut hatch in the floor beneath it. Inside the hidden compartment lay a folder of documents and a USB flash drive. Her hands trembled as she opened the folder. The first document made her sink to the floor. It was a license for a private investigator, issued to Victor S. Croft. Her husband wasn't an auto mechanic, he was a private detective. The following pages revealed an even more unbelievable story. Victor had been investigating a series of child disappearances in their area. Over the past 3 years, 8 children between the ages of 10 and 15 had vanished. Officially, the searches had yielded no results. But Victor had discovered the truth. Nina started her husband's old laptop and inserted the flash drive. What she saw made her heart stop. The children hadn't disappeared. They were being sold. An underground network trafficking human organs was operating right in their city. The scheme was meticulously planned. Children from troubled families were taken into custody by Child Protective Services, officially placed in orphanages, but in reality, transferred to private medical facilities. As Nina scrolled through the list of network participants, she saw names that sent a chill down her spine. The head physician of the city's children's hospital, Dr. Andrew Solovyov. The head of the Child Protective Services Department, Rita Vasilieva. A businessman, Oleg Krutov, who owned several private clinics. And at the very end of the list, a familiar name, Helen Croft, a leading specialist in child protective services. Nina's mother-in-law was one of the organizers of the entire scheme. Nina frantically flipped through the documents. Medical records, photographs, correspondence. And then she saw a photo of Lisa. Her daughter was on a list of potential donors with a note. Rare blood type, suitable for emergency operations. They had been watching her stepdaughter. Victor had been murdered because he had uncovered the criminal's trail and realized they were hunting his daughter.
Her phone rang.
It was Sarah. "Nina, something strange just happened. People from child services came by, asking about Lisa. They said they needed to process guardianship papers since her parents are gone. I told them she was with a friend, but they were very insistent." "Where is Lisa?" "She's sleeping now."
"What's going on?"
"Don't let anyone near her. I'm on my way." Nina shut down the laptop and grabbed the folder. As she was leaving the garage, she noticed a white van driving slowly past the co-op. In the streetlight, she recognized the license plate. It was the same one Victor had noted in his journal as a surveillance vehicle. They were following her. Nina ran through the courtyard, and here is the conclusion of the story, Dards, weaving between the buildings. She had to get to Sarah's place undetected, but as she approached the entrance, she saw the same white van parked outside. Her heart sank. She was too late. Sarah opened the door with tears in her eyes. "Nina, I'm so sorry. They showed me official papers from Child Services. They said they were taking Lisa to a children's home temporarily until the guardianship is settled. I couldn't stop them. They had official documents." "Where did they take her?" I don't know, they said to the social shelter on Komsomolskaya Street. Nina knew that shelter, and she knew that children were regularly transferred from there to a specialized facility. Now she understood where, exactly. But when Nina arrived at the shelter, the security guard told her no one had been brought in. Furthermore, the shelter had been closed for renovations for a week. Lisa had been taken somewhere else. Nina returned to Sarah's and opened Victor's investigation files again. She had to figure out where they could have hidden the girl. The folder contained the addresses of all the private clinics connected to the network. Then, she stumbled upon a familiar name, the Health Medical Center on Pushkin Street. It was the same clinic where Victor had been treated before he died, where Dr. Solovyov had issued a death certificate citing a sudden heart attack. Nina had been a nurse at the city hospital for 15 years. She knew the symptoms of a heart attack, and Victor hadn't had them. Her husband had been poisoned. In the case files, there was a security camera recording from the clinic's hallway. To her horror, Nina recognized herself. She was entering Victor's room with a syringe, injecting something into his foredrip, and leaving. But she had no memory of it. None at all. A note in Victor's medical chart read, "Patient Nina C. administered a memory-altering drug." After the stressful situation, they had given her a narcotic that erased her memory of how she had killed her own husband. They had forced her to become a murderer against her will. Nina felt the ground give way beneath her, but she had to save Lisa. That was the only thing that mattered now. She studied the clinic's floor plan and the security layout, which Victor had somehow managed to obtain. Getting inside would be difficult, but possible, through a service entrance in the basement. Late that night, Nina slipped into the clinic. A dim light glowed in the basement. She heard voices and cautiously peeked through a slightly ajar door. Inside the room were several medical beds. On one of them lay Lisa, hooked up to N4. The girl was unconscious. Nearby, two people in white coats were talking. "We start the operation tomorrow morning. We have a buyer for a kidney and part of the liver. The blood type is rare. It will be difficult to find another donor." "What about the detective? Have his files been found?" "Not yet, but his widow is under control. Helen says the woman doesn't suspect a thing." Nina clenched her fists. They were going to kill Lisa tomorrow morning. She waited until the doctors left and crept into the room. Lisa was lying still, but her breathing was steady. Nina carefully disconnected the four and began to bring the girl back to consciousness. "Aunt Nina," Lisa whispered weakly, opening her eyes. "Sho, sweetheart. I'm here. We're leaving now." But as they were making their way out of the basement, a nasty surprise awaited them. Helen was standing at the exit with two security guards. "I knew you'd come," her mother-in-law said coldly. "My son was too smart for his own good and knew too much." "You killed Victor," Nina said, pulling Lisa close. "I saved him from prison. He wanted to destroy an enterprise that benefits society. We help sick children get the organs they need for transplants. You kill healthy children to do it. Sacrifices are unavoidable. Think of how many lives we save." Helen nodded to the guards. "Take the girl back and send this one to join her husband." The guards moved toward them, but Lisa suddenly slipped from Nina's grasp and ran to the alarm panel on the wall. Before anyone could stop her, she slammed the red button. A siren blared, and red lights began to flash. An evacuation started in the clinic. "Clever girl," Helen sneered. "But it won't change anything. The alarm is connected to our security service, not the police." But a few minutes later, police and federal agents stormed into the basement. "Nobody move. Hands up." Nina couldn't understand what was happening. Where had the police come from? One of the officers approached her. "Nina, we received a signal from your husband. Victor was working with us for the last 6 months. He was feeding us information about the criminal network, but we needed direct evidence." "But Victor is dead." "Yes, unfortunately. But he managed to install hidden cameras and transmitters in the clinic. Everything that has happened here for the past few months has been recorded and sent to us. And tonight, we received a signal that a child was in danger in the building." The officer pointed at Lisa. "The girl activated a beacon that Victor hid in her clothing. We were tracking her location. Lisa looked down guiltily. Daddy Victor told me about a button on my jacket. He said if something bad happened, I should press it. I pressed it when those people took me from Aunt Sarah's house. Victor knew they were hunting you? Nina asked. He figured it out 3 days ago, and he realized his mother was working for the criminals. That's why he decided to speed up the operation to catch them, even at the risk of his own life. Helen and the doctors were led away in handcuffs. As she was taken, Helen shot Nina, a look full of hatred. You won't get anything, you know. The apartment is in my name. She will, the federal officer said. We have Victor's will. He signed the apartment over to his wife and daughter a week before he died. Your claim to it was obtained through fraud. When it was all over, Nina and Lisa sat in a car, wrapped in blankets. The girl held her hand tightly. Aunt Nina, will you be my real mom now? Nina stroked her hair. If you want me to be, sweetheart. I do. Daddy Victor said you were the kindest woman in the world, and that he was so happy we became a family. Nina began to cry, but they were tears of relief, not grief. Victor had saved them both, even at the cost of his own life. He had destroyed the criminal network and protected his daughter from death. And now she had a family. A real family that no one could ever tear apart. Let's go home, Lisa, she said. Home, the girl agreed, squeezing her hand tighter.